Hi guys, John Florez again, and here's a good one for you. My creative well had run dry until a fabulous new subscriber to this channel. Very articulate, pop music aficionado, very bright man. He made a comment amongst several comments on different clips I had made, but the one about my wanting to move Helen Reddy, in retrospect, to her home studio at Capitol Records with her home engineer. This is where she did most of her hits. He said, "John, Helen's a world-class singer. She can sing in any studio." Okay, that means that I didn't explain it very well, and I want to talk to you about what it takes to get singers in a space, in a headspace, to deliver wonderful vocals. Okay, it's not as easy as you think. Some acts that I worked with, like the Fifth Dimension, they just walked in and nailed it the first time around. That's rare, actually, because let's use RCA studios in LA as an example. The big studios, A and B, are the size of a gymnasium. You can put a full orchestra in there and more. And if you're setting the vocalists up around a music stand toward the front of that room, you got this gaping cavern behind you and this feeling of non-intimacy. And that can be very intimidating, or at least weird, to be singing there. That said, let's talk about what it takes to get a winning vocal out of a vocalist, including world-class vocalists, who aren't doing very well when they start working with me or others. This should be illuminating for you. Okay, so let's start with a world-class singer that I worked with, Johnny Mathis. We had recorded all the tracks. John came in for his lead vocals and couldn't sing them very well. It was not going well. We couldn't get past the first tune. And I went to him and I said, "John, what's going on? How can I help you?" And he said, "John, listen, you're the 17th producer I've had in 17 years. It's a new producer, a new engineer, a new studio, and I'm just not comfortable yet." And I said, "Okay, let's try something. You go back out there into this cavernous studio and take off your headphones. I'm going to set up a radio speaker on your music stand, and instead of listening to yourself through your headphones, studying what you're doing while you're singing, just sing to the radio. It'll just be your tracks coming through the radio speaker, but just have fun like you're in your living room or your car singing to the radio. Let's see if that helps." So he goes out and he tries that, and we're maybe 1 minute in max. And Johnny Mathis says, "Okay, that's enough." He puts on his headphones and he sang all 10 tunes back to back perfectly. Okay, that's all it took. He needed to be comfortable. And that is the theme of all of these stories that I'm telling you about. It doesn't matter what studio you're in, whatever, it doesn't matter how experienced you are. There are times when you're not comfortable. It's like a Super Bowl football team that shows up and they're a great team, but they stink that day. That happens to singers as well. So let's go to Willie Hutch. Willie Hutch was a seasoned studio veteran when I met him, and he came to work on his first album, Soul Portrait, with me at RCA. He arranged and conducted them all. He wrote them all. He played guitar on them all. He arranged the background vocals. He did everything. And then it was time for him to come in to large Studio B for his lead vocals. And it was an evening I will never forget, because we're 30 minutes in, it's not going well, and Willie says, "John," he said, "John, it's not happening tonight. Let's go home. We'll try again tomorrow." He came back the next night and sang all the tunes on the album back to back perfectly, just like Johnny Mathis did. Okay, it took a different day at a different time to get him comfortable. Okay, let's segue just for a moment to Ray Cork, my beloved rest in peace arranger, who became a staff producer in the office next to me at RCA, and he was assigned Jack Jones, the legendary singer who had been singing for years in recording studios, and RCA was his home studio. Well, he had never worked with Ray before. All the tracks are done again. It's time for Jack Jones to sing, and he can't sing. And Ray says, how can I help? And they tried all kinds of things. They changed the lighting. They made it feel more like a living room. They did all of this stuff. And finally Ray said, well, let's try this. And he takes out a blanket. He lays it down on the floor. He has Jack lie down on the floor as if he's going to sleep, puts the microphone above him as Jack is lying down, and Jack sings the album. Okay, all it took was that. I never would have thought of that, but isn't that incredible? Okay, so back to Helen Reddy just for a second. I couldn't get her to relax. Her life was utter shit at the time. The stuff that was going on in her real life was utter shit at the time. And I couldn't do anything about it. There was a lot of tension in the air based on all of that background drama. And I'm sorry, I failed her. I could not get her to relax. And did I try everything I knew how to do? No. But I only had her for 2 vocal sessions, maybe even it was just 1. And that's when I got fired with a phone call by her husband, Jeff Wald. It's like, it's not working out, John. I couldn't get Helen comfortable. I didn't want to change her style. I maybe would have disagreed a bit on Let Me Be Your Woman. I really would have preferred she not sing out on that. But I wasn't around for her doing that vocal, so my input wasn't available anyway. I wanted that to be mellow and romantic instead of full voice. But we never got to that point. I don't know whether you remember the story, but the newspaper that morning had called her husband the music mafia boss of LA, and she was upset. Okay, and that was the last time I worked with her. Never heard from her again. Okay, so now back to singers and trying to get them comfortable in the studio. If the lead singer isn't comfortable, you're not going to have a record. Okay, well, the funniest one to tell you is Bobby Brooks, who had already sung perfectly in LA on our original dates for Jam-X Records. Once he left Jam-X Records, he came to Phoenix briefly, where I was living, and we went to a local studio, and there was a guitar voice demo we wanted to do that hopefully we could turn into a finished track, and Bobby couldn't relax. Now that's after having performed perfectly in the studio in LA. So Bobby's a war hero. He's a multi-decorated war hero. And he's you could call him a tough guy if he wants to be a tough guy. He's a tough guy. And he wasn't expecting this, but I came up from behind him and I tackled him to the ground. He said, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "Now try singing it, Bobby." And he sang it perfectly. That's all it took for him to, here's the key word again, relax. Get comfortable with the environment in the studio. And I can wrap up with the other singers I worked with who weren't initially comfortable in the studio by saying they needed a little chemical stimulant in order to relax. Stimulant's probably the wrong word. Relaxant to relax. So in one case, my artist from the Pacific Northwest, he came in for his night of lead vocals, couldn't cut it. He was having a lot of difficulty relaxing, and I asked my wife Carol to drive all the way home to Tarzana from Hollywood, get him a Valium, bring it back, pop it in his mouth, and within the hour he sang everything perfectly. There you go, that's what it took for him. I had another artist who wrote and performed all of his stuff, had been recording extensively in the past, couldn't relax, and I said to him, we'll go unnamed, hey, go out and smoke a joint and come back and let's see how it goes then. He smoked a joint, sang them all. So naturally, that was not my first line of approach. I tried all the other stuff, changing the lighting, making the environment a little more intimate, having him sing to a radio speaker, asking him what it would take to relax, tackling him to the floor, never forget that, on and on. I was like a concierge. I had to try to figure out, upon greeting them, how they were feeling and what to do to get them to feel like the studio was their home. That was the goal. So I hope that clarifies what it takes to get a great lead vocal performance, because if the artist isn't comfortable, you ain't gonna get it. Okay, I know it's been a while since I posted. My health has been not good. I'm working on it. I'll keep you posted. I may in fact post 3 or 4 tracks where I used AI to boost the orchestra. And there are 3 fifth dimension tracks, which will probably get blocked by YouTube in various territories. And then an additional track where I think it makes a world of difference. I'm able to bring the strings and, in a couple of instances, the background voices up to where I wanted them in the first place. In that case, AI is great. Other than that, the jury's out for me. Okay, so send me a little prayer that my health gets better. And as always, I really appreciate you watching, and I love your feedback. So you guys take care. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.